How are you guys doing? Happy Halloween. Today is Sunday, October 31st, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances that took place yesterday on Saturday, October 30th. And of course, for this episode, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday. But first, I'm going to take a quick snapshot of where we are in the season. Of course, there are still two teams left in the MLB that are fighting for the title, as 28 teams have already been eliminated, and one team is on the verge of elimination tonight, as the entire MLB season could end. At the same time, hockey and basketball are just getting underway, while football, home and abroad, is just getting underway. And without further ado, I'm going to go into what's going on with the World Series at the very moment. Last night in Atlanta, the Atlanta Braves hosted the American League champs, the Houston Astros. Coming into this matchup, the Braves held a 3-1 series lead. And in Game 5, with their backs against the wall, the 2017 World Series champs, Houston Astros, were able to beat the Braves 9-5 to keep themselves alive in this World Series. The first 4 runs would come in the bottom of the first off of a grand slam from Adam Duvall to give the Braves a 4-0 lead. The Astros would shorten their deficit in the second inning off of an RBI double from Alex Bregman and a sacrifice fly from Martin Maldonado. Following these 2 runs, the score was 4-2 Atlanta. In the top of the third, Carlos Correa's double would shorten the Astros deficit to 1, and Yuli Gurriel's ground out would tie the game at 4. In the bottom of the third, Freddie Freeman's solo home run would give the Braves the lead back, making it 5-4 Atlanta. In the top of the fifth, Martin Maldonado's walk would tie the game at 5, and Marwin Gonzalez's RBI, or 2-run single, would give the Astros their first lead of the day, a 7-5 lead. In the top of the seventh, Martin Maldonado's single made it 8-5 Houston, and in the top of the eighth, Carlos Correa's RBI single would give the Astros their 9th run to beat the Braves 9-5. Looking at how the Braves fared, the start for them was given to Tucker Davidson. Tucker Davidson allowed 4 runs in 2 innings. He would only strike out 1 batter and walk 3 in that span. The loss was given to the Braves' second relief pitcher, A.J. Minter. He would pitch a full inning. He would eventually get pulled in the 6th inning. He would allow 3 earned runs in the 1 inning that he pitched, as he struck out and walked 2. This would be his first blown save of the series, and with this loss, he's 1-1. In the Braves' batting lineup, their third baseman, Austin Riley, would end up going 3 for 4 with a run. Their catcher, Travis d'Arnaud, would go 2 for 4. Their elite first baseman and reigning National League MVP, Freddie Freeman, would go 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run. He would go on to hit his first home run of the World Series. And then their center fielder Adam Duvall would go 1 for 4 with 4 RBIs and a run. His grand slam was his second home run of the series. Looking at how the Astros fared, the start was given to Framber Valdez. Framber Valdez allowed 5 earned runs in 2.2 innings. He walked 2 batters and struck out 1. The win was given to the Astros' second relief pitcher, Jose Urquidy. He allowed no earned runs as he pitched the entire 4th inning. He would pick up his second win of the series. He's now 2-0. In the Astros batting lineup, their shortstop Carlos Correa will go 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs and a run. Their first baseman, the reigning American League batting champ Yuli Gurriel, will go 3 for 5 with an RBI and 2 runs. Their elite second baseman Jose Altuve went 1 for 5 with 2 runs. Their elite third baseman Alex Bregman would go 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run. And with this win, the Astros have forced a Game 6, which will be played in Houston. This matchup will be tomorrow on November 2nd. So that's what's going on in the MLB, as there are only 2 teams left. One more win will do it for the Braves. And if the Astros win Game 6, that means they will have to force Game 7, which means the winner of Game 7 would win the World Series. Taking a look at what's going on with football, yesterday was the 9th Saturday of the season and taking a look at how every team fares, starting from the very top of the rankings. The number one team in the nation, the Georgia Bulldogs, were able to beat the unranked Florida Gators 34-7 after they outscored Florida 24-0 in the first half, all 24 of those points coming in the second quarter. They would outscore Florida 10-7 in the second half in order to remain undefeated in the conference. Georgia's quarterback Stetson Bennett would throw for 161 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. He also ran for 35 yards. That's 196 total yards of offense. The Bulldogs' leading rusher was Zamir White. He had 14 carries for 105 yards and a touchdown. Their leading receiver, Kearis Jackson, had 3 receptions for 59 yards as he had a touchdown. Georgia's leading tackler was Quay Walker. He had 13 tackles on the day. He was the only player on either team that finished with double-digit tackles. Nolan Smith would finish with one of the team's interceptions as the other one went to Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean would finish with 7 tackles and a 50-yard pick six. Nolan Smith, along with his interception, he would go on to finish with 2 fumble recoveries along with his 4 tackles. With this win, Georgia is 8-0. They are 6-0 in the SEC. They are the only team left in the SEC that's undefeated in their entire schedule, and they're the only team that's undefeated in the SEC as the college football schedule is sitting. With this loss, Florida is 4-4. They are 2-4 in the SEC. Jumping to the second-ranked team in the nation, the Cincinnati Bearcats went all the way to New Orleans to face off against the Tulane Green Wave, and the second-ranked Bearcats would beat Tulane 31-12. Cincy outscored Tulane 14-12 in the first half before they shut Tulane out 17-0 in the second half. The Bearcats starting quarterback Desmond Ridder would throw for 227 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. He also ran for 47 yards. That would be 274 total yards of offense. Their leading rusher, Jerome Ford, finished with 18 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He had 4 receptions for 42 yards through the air and an additional touchdown. That's 107 total yards of offense and 2 touchdowns. Cincy's leading receiver was Josh Wiley. He had 4 receptions for 79 yards as he had 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Joel Dublanco finished with the most tackles. He finished with 9 tackles on the team. Javon Hicks and Kobe Bryant would finish with the team's 2 interceptions. With this win, Cincy is now 8-0 on the season as they are now 4-0 in the American Athletic Conference. Cincy and Houston are the 2 remaining undefeated teams that are undefeated within the conference, as unlike Houston in their full schedule, Cincy is still undefeated in theirs. They are having a great season. With this loss, unranked Tulane is 1-7. They are 0-4 in the American Conference. Taking a look at what's going on with the 4th-ranked team in the nation, the Oklahoma Sooners hosted the unranked Texas Tech Red Raiders. Oklahoma would outscore Texas Tech 28-7 in the first half and 24-14 in the second half to beat Texas Tech 52-21 to remain undefeated. The Oklahoma Sooners starting quarterback Caleb Williams would throw for 402 yards and 6 touchdowns. He also ran for 3 yards. That's 405 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Marvin Mims, would finish with 4 receptions for 135 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, Mario Williams, finished with 5 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Pat Fields and Deshaun White would finish with 8 tackles, leading the whole Oklahoma team as the team was unable to register a sack. Pat Fields, along with his 8 tackles, would finish with an interception for the day. Justin Broyles finished with 6 tackles as he had an interception as well. With this win, 4th-ranked Oklahoma is 9-0. They are undefeated this season. They are undefeated in the Big 12. They are 6-0, and they are the only undefeated team remaining in the Big 12, at least within the division. With this loss, Texas Tech is 5-4. They are now 2-4 in the Big 12 on the season so far. Taking a look at what's going on with the 5th-ranked team in the nation, the Ohio State Buckeyes hosted the 20th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. Ohio State was able to beat Penn State 33-24. Ohio State outscored Penn State 17-10 in the first half, and they went on to outscore Penn State 16-14 in the second half. Looking out first at the Penn State Nittany Lions, their starting quarterback, Sean Clifford, would throw for 361 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Penn State's leading receiver was Jahan Dotson. He finished with 11 receptions for 127 yards. Their second leading receiver was Parker Washington. He finished with 9 yards for 108 yards. Or 9 receptions for 108 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Brandon Smith finished with 8 tackles. Jair Brown finished with 7 tackles as he finished with a fumble recovery. For the 5th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes, their starting quarterback, C.J. Stroud, would throw for 305 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher was Travion Henderson. He had 28 carries for 152 yards and a rushing touchdown. He also had 7 yards in the air, so that's 159 total yards of offense. Ohio State's leading receiver was Jackson Smith and Jigba. He had 6 receptions for 97 yards. Garrett Wilson had 7 receptions for 82 yards for himself. On the defensive side of the ball, Ronnie Hickman would finish with 14 tackles as he led the entire game. Ohio State would finish with 4 total sacks as a team. Cameron Brown would finish with 5 tackles as he had an interception as well. With this win, the 5th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes are 7-1. They are 5-0 in the Big Ten. They are one of 2 teams left undefeated in the Big Ten as they are sitting alongside 5-0 Michigan State. However, Michigan State is the only team in the Big Ten who has not lost a game this season. With this loss, the 20th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions are 5-3. They are now 2-3 in the conference as everything stands. Taking a look at what's going on with the 6th-ranked team in the nation, the Michigan State Wolverines traveled for about an hour to East Lansing to face off against the 8th-ranked Michigan State Spartans. And in this intra-state rivalry, the Michigan State Spartans would come from behind to beat the Michigan Wolverines 37-33. Michigan outscored Michigan State 23-14 in the first half. Michigan State would outscore Michigan 23-10 in the second half. Looking at what was going on for the 6th-ranked Michigan Wolverines in their first loss of the season, their starting quarterback, Cade McNamara, threw for 383 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. He also ran for 23 yards. That's 406 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver was Andrell Anthony. He finished with 6 receptions for 155 yards and 2 touchdowns. Michigan's second leading receiver was Eric All. He finished with 10 receptions for 98 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Josh Ross finished with 10 tackles. David Ojabo finished with 4 tackles, as 2 of his 4 tackles were sacks. He had 2 of the team's 3. On the defense, or in the secondary, Mike Morris and R.J. Moten finished with the team's 2 interceptions. On the Michigan State side of things, their starting quarterback, Peyton Thorne, threw for 196 yards and 2 interceptions. Their leading rusher was Kenneth Walker III. He had 23 carries for 197 yards and 5 touchdowns. He also had 3 receptions for 11 yards, so that would be 208 total yards of offense and 5 touchdowns for Kenneth Walker III. Michigan State's leading receiver was Jaden Reed. He had 6 receptions for 80 yards, and Jalen Naylor had 4 receptions for 75 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Quavaris Crouch would finish with 13 tackles on the day. Darius Snow and Cal Halliday finished with 10 tackles each. And Charles Brantley would finish with the team's only interception to go along as 4 interceptions. With this win, the Michigan State Spartans are now 8-0. They are the only undefeated team in the Big Ten, and they are 5-0 in the Big Ten. They and Ohio State are the only 2 teams that have not lost a game in Big Ten play. With this loss, the 6th-ranked Michigan Wolverines are now 7-1. They are now 4-1 in the Big Ten as their undefeated streak in the Big Ten has officially come to an end. Taking a look at what was going on with the 7th-ranked team in the nation, the Oregon Ducks hosted the unranked Colorado Buffaloes. The Ducks would beat Colorado 52-29 after they outscored Colorado 31-14 in the first half. They went on to outscore Colorado 21-15 in the second half. Leading the way for the 7th-ranked Oregon Ducks, their starting quarterback Anthony Brown would throw for 307 yards and 3 touchdowns. He would run the ball for 38 yards as he finished with 345 total yards of offense. The Ducks' leading rusher was Byron Cardwell. He had 7 carries for 127 yards and a touchdown. Their second leading rusher was Travis Dye. He had 13 carries for 47 yards as he had 2 touchdowns. He also had 5 receptions for 75 yards and a touchdown. That is 122 total yards of offense alongside his 3 touchdowns. Oregon's leading receiver was Devin Williams. He had 5 receptions for 95 yards as he had a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Michael Wright Jeffrey Bassa, Noah Sewell, all 3 of them had 6 tackles, which tied for the team high. With this win, the 7th-ranked Oregon Ducks are 7-1 on the season. They are now 4-1 in the Pac-12. Oregon and Utah are the only teams in the Pac-12 that only have 1 loss in conference play at the moment. Taking a look at what's going on with the 9th best team in the nation, the 9th-ranked Iowa Hawkeyes went to Madison to face off against the Wisconsin Badgers. In Wisconsin, unranked Wisconsin would beat Iowa 27-7 after they shut Iowa out in the first half, outscoring them 20-0. And then both teams would score a touchdown in the second half, but Iowa would lose this game by 20. For the 9th-ranked Iowa Hawkeyes, their starting quarterback, Spencer Petras, would throw for 93 yards. His leading receiver, Sam Laporta, had 3 receptions for 44 yards. Their leading tackler was Jack Corner. He had 11 tackles on the day. And for the unranked Wisconsin Badgers, they were led by their starting quarterback, Graham Mertz. He threw for 104 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 2 yards and 2 additional touchdowns. That's 106 total yards of offense, tied to 3 touchdowns in his name. Their leading rusher was Braylon Allen. He had 20 carries for 104 yards. Their leading receiver was Danny Davis III. He had 5 receptions for 59 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Leo Chenal would lead the team in tackles as he finished with 9 of them. Nick Herbig finished with 9 tackles as he had 2.5 sacks. With this win, the unranked Wisconsin Badgers they're 5-3. They are now 3-2 in the Big Ten. And with this loss, the 9th-ranked Iowa Hawkeyes are now 6-2. They are now 3-2 in the division as things are playing out at the moment. And of course, with this loss, the Iowa Hawkeyes will drop out of the top 10 from here on out. Taking a look at what's going on with the 10th ranked team in the nation, the Ole Miss Rebels faced off against the Auburn Tigers in Auburn. And the 18th ranked Tigers would beat the Ole Miss Rebels 31-20. Auburn outscored Ole Miss 28-17 in the first half, and both teams were only able to kick a field goal in the second. Looking first at the 10th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels on the losing end, their starting quarterback, Matt Corral, threw for 289 yards and an interception. He also ran the ball 10 times for 45 yards and a touchdown. He would go on to finish with 334 total yards of offense to himself. Their leading rusher, Henry Parrish Jr., had 12 carries for 59 yards. He also had 15 yards through the air, so that would be 72 total yards of offense. Ja'Cour Pearson finished with 7 receptions for 135 yards. Casey Kelly finished with 7 receptions for 81. On the defensive side of the ball, A.J. Finley finished with 10 tackles for the day. And then for the 18th-ranked Auburn Tigers, their starting quarterback, Bo Nix, would throw for 276 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 30 yards and 2 touchdowns as he would finish with 306 total yards of offense for the day alongside his 3 touchdowns. Auburn's leading rusher was Tank Bigsby. He had 23 carries for 140 yards and a touchdown. He also had 10 yards through the air, so that's 150 total yards of offense. Auburn's leading receiver was Kobe Hudson. He had 60 receptions for 79 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Zacoby McClain would lead the team in tackles and sacks. He had 14 tackles and he had 2 sacks. And then Jalen Simpson would finish with the team's only interception as they came alongside his only tackle of the day. With this win, the 18th-ranked Auburn Tigers are 6-2. They are 3-1 in the SEC. With this loss, 10th-ranked Ole Miss is 6-2 as they are 3-2 in the SEC. Auburn sits alongside Alabama as they're the two teams in the SEC that only have one loss in SEC play this season. And of course, that'll change as they have yet to play each other eventually, but that's where everything sits. Taking a look at what's going on with the 11th ranked team in the nation, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish hosted the unranked North Carolina Tar Heels, and Notre Dame was able to beat North Carolina 44-34. Notre Dame outscored UNC 17-13 in the first half, and they outscored UNC 27-21 in the second half. For the Fighting Irish, their starting quarterback Jack Cohn would throw for 213 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 28 yards and an additional touchdown. That would be a total of 241 total yards of offense with his 2 touchdowns. Notre Dame's leading rusher was Kyron Williams. He had 22 carries for 199 yards and a touchdown. He also had 15 yards of receiving through the air. That's 214 total yards of offense. Notre Dame's leading receiver was Lorenzo Styles Jr. He had 3 receptions for 74 yards. Notre Dame's leading tackler was Isaiah Foskey. He had 7 tackles on the day, and DJ Brown would finish with the team's only interception as he had 5 tackles as well. With this win, Notre Dame is 7-1 on the season as they are 4-1 at home. With this loss, the unranked North Carolina Tar Heels are 4-4 on the season. Taking a look at what's going on with the 12th ranked team in the nation, the Kentucky Wildcats would go to Mississippi to face off against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. In this matchup, the unranked Bulldogs would beat Kentucky 31-17. Mississippi State outscored Kentucky 14-10 in the first half, and they went on to outscore Kentucky 17-7 in the second. And looking at the 12th ranked Kentucky Wildcats, their starting quarterback Will Levis would throw for 150 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions. Their leading receiver, Wandale Robinson, he had 9 receptions for 79 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Jaquez Jones would lead the team in tackles as he would finish with 18 of them for the day. Trevin Wallace and DeAndre Square would finish with 12 tackles. Yusuf Corker would finish with 11. They had 4 players with double-digit tackles on the day. Looking at how Mississippi State fared, their starting quarterback, Will Rogers, completed 36 of his 39 passes as he threw for 344 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher was Joquavius Marks. He had 20 yards for 58 carries and a touchdown. He also had 9 receptions for 57 yards. That is 115 total yards of offense. Jaden Wally was Mississippi State's leading receiver. He had 6 receptions for 95 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Jet Johnson led the team in tackles as he had 9 tackles. Cameron Young, Sean Preston Jr., and Jalen Green would finish with the team's 3 interceptions. With this win, the unranked Mississippi State Bulldogs are 5-3. They are 3-2 in the SEC currently. And with this loss, the 12th ranked Kentucky Wildcats are 6-2. They are now 4-2 in the SEC. Taking a look at what's going on with the 13th ranked team in the nation, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons hosted the unranked Duke Blue Devils, and in this matchup, Wake Forest would beat Duke 45-7. They outscored Duke 28-0 in the first half, shut them out virtually, and then Wake Forest would outscore Duke 17-7 in the second half. Looking at how the Wake Forest Demon Deacons fared, their starting quarterback, Sam Hartman, would throw for 402 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also ran for 61 yards on 6 carries as he had 2 touchdowns. That is 463 total yards of offense alongside 5 touchdowns. Christian Turner would be the team's leading rusher as he had 10 carries for 75 yards. Their leading receiver was A.T. Perry. He had 7 receptions for 116 yards. Their second receiver, Jaquari Roberson, finished with 4 receptions for 65 yards and a touchdown. With this win, the 13th ranked Wake Forest on the defensive side of the ball, Nick Anderson finished with 6 tackles as the team finished with 2 sacks. With this win, the 13th ranked Wake Forest Demon Deacons are 8-0. They are 5-0 in the ACC. They are the last remaining undefeated team in the ACC for their overall schedule and in their ACC schedule. With this loss, Duke is now 3-5 as they are now 0-4 in the ACC at the moment. Taking a look at what's going on with the 15th ranked team in the nation, the Oklahoma State Cowboys hosted the unranked Kansas Jayhawks. Oklahoma State would end up beating Kansas 55-3 as Oklahoma State shut out Kansas 38-0 in the first half. and they would end up outscoring Kansas 17-3 in the second half. Looking at how they fared, their starting quarterback Spencer Sanders would throw for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 53 yards on 7 carries as he had a touchdown. He would go on to finish with 210 total yards of offense with his 3 touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Dominic Richardson. He had 11 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown. Oklahoma State's leading receiver was Tay Martin. He had 5 receptions for 84 yards as he had a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Cameron Farrar and Malcolm Rodriguez would finish with 5 tackles each, leading the team. Nick Sessian, Kobe Harvell, Peal, and Jason Taylor II would each finish with an interception. With this win, the 15th ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys are 7-1. They are 4-1 in the Big 12. They and Baylor are the only teams with 1 loss in the Big 12 at the moment, and those are the only losses in their actual records. They are tied with the second best record. With this loss, the unranked Kansas Jayhawks are 1-7. They are officially 0-5 in the Big 10. Taking a look at what's going on with the 16th ranked team in the nation, the Baylor Bears hosted the unranked Texas Longhorns. Baylor was able to beat Texas 31-24. Texas outscored Baylor 14-10 in the first half, but Baylor would outscore Texas 21-10 in the second half, and that would be the difference. For the 16th ranked Baylor Bears, their starting quarterback, Jerry Bohannon, would throw for 190 yards and 2 interceptions. He also ran for 27 yards and a touchdown, so that's 217 total yards of offense, with his only touchdown of the day being a rushing one. Their leading rusher was Abram Smith. He had 21 carries for 145 yards and a touchdown. Their leading receiver was R.J. Sneed, as he had 8 receptions for 94 yards. He had a receiving touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Dylan Doyle finished with 12 tackles on the day, and J.T. Woods would finish with an interception. He would have the only interception of the day. And then with this win, the 16th ranked Baylor Bears are 7-1 on the season. They are 4-1 in the Big 12. They are tied with Oklahoma State for the second best record in the conference, as of course they both sit behind undefeated Oklahoma. With this loss, unranked Texas is 4-4. They are now 2-3 in the Big 12 as everything stands right now. Jumping to see what's going on with the 17th ranked team in the nation, the Pittsburgh Panthers hosted the unranked Miami Hurricanes. Miami would end up beating Pittsburgh 38-34. Miami outscored Pittsburgh 31-17 in the first half, as Pittsburgh outscored Miami 17-7 in the second half, but it wouldn't be enough. For the 17th ranked Pittsburgh Panthers, their starting quarterback Kenny Pickett would throw for 519 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Their leading receiver was Jordan Addison. He had 8 receptions for 145 yards. Their second leading receiver, Taysir Mack, had 5 receptions for 92 yards. And Pittsburgh's third leading receiver, Jared Wayne, had 6 receptions for 78 yards as he had a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Eric Hallett would finish with 9 tackles, leading the entire team and tying for the game high. And then John Petroshin would finish with the team's only interception as he had 3 tackles on the day. Looking at the unranked Miami Hurricanes, their starting quarterback Tyler Van Dyke would throw for 426 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Their leading rusher, Jalen Knighton, would finish with 17 carries for 18 yards and 2 touchdowns. He finished with 11 yards through the air, so that's 91 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver was Charleston Rambo, who finished with 7 receptions for 101 yards. Their second leading receiver was Xavier Restrepo. He had 7 receptions for 89 yards. Their third leading receiver, Keyshawn Smith, finished with 3 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. And Will Mallory, their fourth leading receiver, had 3 receptions for 66 yards as he had a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball for Miami, their leading tackler was James Williams. He had 9 tackles on the day. Zach McLeod would finish with 3 tackles as he had a sack and a half. Tyreek Stevenson and James Williams would finish with the team's 2 interceptions, as James Williams was the player that led Miami in tackles. With this win, unranked Miami is 4-4. They are 2-2 in the ACC as things stand. With this loss, Pittsburgh is 6-2. That is still the best record or at least within their division of the ACC, and they are now 3-1 in the conference. They are tied with NC State as the only two teams with only one loss in the ACC so far, as they both sit behind Wake Forest, who at this point in the season is undefeated in the ACC and for the season for that matter. Taking a look at what's going on with the 19th ranked team in the nation, the SMU Mustangs went to Houston to face off against the Cougars, and the unranked Cougars would beat SMU 44-37. Houston would end up outscoring SMU 23-20 in the first half before they outscored SMU 21-17 in the second half. Looking out first at the 19th ranked SMU Mustangs, their starting quarterback Tanner Mordecai threw for 305 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. SMU's leading receiver was Danny Gray. He finished with 5 receptions for 73 yards. Their third leading receiver, Rashee Rice, had 6 receptions for 51 yards as he had a touchdown. SMU's leading tackler was Isaac Slade Mataucha as he finished with 7 tackles on the day. For the unranked Houston Cougars, their starting quarterback Clayton Tune would throw for 412 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also ran for 9 yards, so that's 421 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver was Nathaniel Dell. He had 9 receptions for 165 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, Jeremy Singleton, had 5 receptions for 93 yards. Their third leading receiver, Jake Herslow, had 3 receptions for 63 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Alex Hogan finished with 8 tackles, and Marcus Jones finished with the team's only interception as he had 6 tackles on the day. With this win, Houston is now 7-1 as they remain undefeated in the American Conference. They and Cincinnati are the 2 teams that are still undefeated in conference play, as Cincinnati remains the only undefeated team remaining in the AAC. With this loss, the 19th ranked SMU Mustangs are now 7-1. They are 3-1 in the conference. They are now holding the 3rd best record in the American Athletic Conference, as they are the only one-loss team in that conference as a whole, or at least as it comes to the conference play. And with this win, of course, Houston is now 7-1. They are 5-0 in the American Conference, like I just said. Taking a look at what's going on with the 21st ranked team in the nation, the 21st ranked San Diego State Aztecs hosted the unranked Fresno State Bulldogs. Unranked Fresno State would end up beating San Diego State as yet another ranked team fell. Fresno State would outscore San Diego State 20-7 in the first half, and then San Diego State would outscore Fresno State 13-10 in the second half. First looking at the 21st ranked San Diego State Aztecs, who picked up their first loss of the season. Their starting quarterback Lucas Johnson would throw for 220 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. He ran for 60 yards, so that's 280 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver was Elijah Koth. He had 4 receptions for 105 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Cameron Thomas would finish with 8 tackles and a sack. Their second leading tackler, Patrick McMorris, finished with 7 tackles as he recovered 2 fumbles. On the unranked Fresno State side, their starting quarterback, Jake Hayner, threw for 306 yards and an interception. Their leading rusher, Jordan Mims, finished with 29 carries for 186 yards as he had 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 yards through the air, so that's 188 total yards of offense. Fresno State's leading receiver was Josh Kelly. He had 5 receptions for 107 yards. Jalen Cropper was their second leading receiver. He had 6 receptions for 84 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Evan Williams finished with 13 tackles on the day, as he also finished with an interception. Jalen Williams would finish with the other interception for the day. With this win, unranked Fresno State is 7-2. They are 4-1 in the Mountain West, as they are tied with Utah State for the best record in the entire conference. With this loss, the 21st ranked San Diego State Aztecs are now 7-1. They are now 3-1 in the Mountain West Conference, as they are tied with Nevada for the 3rd best record in the Mountain West Conference as a whole right now. That is where these two teams are sitting. Taking a look at what went down with the 22nd ranked team in the nation, yet another ranked team would fall, as the 22nd ranked Iowa State Cyclones would end up going to West Virginia to face off against the unranked Mountaineers. West Virginia would outscore, or after the first quarter resulted in a 17-17 tie, West Virginia would outscore Iowa State 21-14 in the second half, as they shut out Iowa State 14-0 in the fourth quarter to pick up a very big win at home. Starting with the 22nd ranked Iowa State Cyclones, their starting quarterback Brock Purdy would throw for 185 yards and a touchdown. He ran for an additional 64 yards and a touchdown. That's 249 total yards of offense. Iowa State's leading rusher Breece Hall finished with 24 carries for 167 yards and a touchdown. He had 3 receptions for 19 yards. That would be 186 total yards of offense. Their leading tackler was Trey Young alongside Jake Hummel. They both finished with 8 tackles. Jake Hummel also finished with a 24-yard pick six to go along with his team high in tackles. Craig McDonald finished with the team's other interception. For the unranked West Virginia Mountaineers, their starting quarterback Jared Doge threw for 327 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Their leading rusher was Letty Brown. He had 22 carries for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 25 yards through the air, so that's 134 total yards of offense. West Virginia's leading receiver was Bryce Ford Wheaton. He had 6 receptions for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. Winston Wright Jr. finished with 6 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball for West Virginia, Josh Chandler-Samita would finish with the team high in tackles. He had 12 of them. He also finished with a sack. With this win, the unranked West Virginia Mountaineers are 4-4. They are now 2-3 in the Big 12 as everything stands. With this loss, the 22nd ranked Iowa State Cyclones are 5-3. They are now 3-2 in the Big 12 as things stand. And then, of course, last but not least, taking a look at the last ranked opponent that would play yesterday, the 25th ranked BYU Cougars hosted the unranked Virginia Cavaliers. BYU would end up beating Virginia 66-49. In the very first half, Virginia outscored BYU 42-38. BYU, after scoring a touchdown with Virginia in the third quarter, would outscore UVA 21-0 in the fourth quarter, and that would be the difference to win the game by 17. Looking at how the 25th ranked BYU Cougars fared, their starting quarterback Jaron Hall threw for 349 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also ran for 42 yards. That is 391 total yards of offense. BYU's leading rusher was Tyler Algier. He finished with 29 carries for 266 yards and 5 touchdowns. He also had 25 yards through the air. That would be 291 total yards of offense. BYU's leading receivers both finished with 107 yards. Samson Nacua had 107 yards and 3 receptions, as one of his 3 receptions was a touchdown. And Puka Nacua had 8 receptions for 107 yards, as he had a touchdown as well. On the defensive side of the ball for BYU, Peyton Wilger finished with 11 tackles. He would lead the team. And then Peyton Wilger would also finish with a 24-yard interception return. Drew Jensen would finish with the team's other interception, as he had 2 tackles. With this win, 25th ranked BYU is 7-2 on the season. With this loss, unranked Virginia is 6-3 on the season. So that is what college football is looking like. And of course, as the NFL continues on, I will review all the matchups tomorrow, as the NBA season is very quickly finishing up. Taking a look at what's going on in the NBA as we're easing into yet another basketball season. Starting off in our nation's capital, the Washington Wizards hosted the Boston Celtics. The Wizards would end up beating the Boston Celtics 115-112 in overtime after outscoring the Celtics 12-9. Looking at first at how the Boston Celtics fared, their leading scorer was their starting shooting guard out of California, Jaylen Brown. He finished with 34 points and 6 rebounds in 47 minutes. He shot 14 for 24 from the field and 6 for 7 from the foul line. Their elite starting small forward, Jason Tatum out of Duke, finished with 27 points, 15 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals in 46 minutes. Tatum shot 10 for 32 from the field and a perfect 7 for 7 from the foul line. For the hometown Washington Wizards, the Wizards were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard, Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal would go on to finish with 36 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals in 46 minutes. Beal shot 12 for 32 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 9 for 9 from the foul line. Their starting center, former NBA Sixth Man of the Year, Montrezl Harrell, finished with 20 points and 14 rebounds as he fouled out in 35 minutes. He shot 6 for 14 from the field and 7 for 8 from the foul line. The Wizards starting guard, Spencer Dinwiddie, would finish with 20 points and 9 rebounds in 40 minutes. He shot 6 for 18 from the field and 7 for 8 from the foul line. With this win, the Washington Wizards are 5-1, and with this loss, the Boston Celtics are now 2-4 to start their season. Taking a look at what's going on in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia 76ers hosted the Atlanta Hawks in what was a rematch of the Eastern Conference Semis matchup that saw the Hawks upset the Sixers. The Sixers would end up beating the Hawks 122-94 as they outscored Atlanta in every single quarter, outscoring the Hawks by 14 in the first half, and then, of course, outscoring them by 14 in the second half. Looking at how the Hawks fared, they were led in scoring by their small forward off the bench, Cam Reddish out of Duke. He finished with 16 points in 20 minutes as he shot 7 for 14 from the field. The Hawks' elite starting point guard, Trey Young, would finish with 13 points, 2 rebounds, and 10 assists in 34 minutes. He shot 5 for 16 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and 2 for 4 from the foul line. Looking at how the Philadelphia 76ers fared on the winning end of this matchup, they were led in scoring by their starting power forward out of Tennessee, Tobias Harris. Harris finished with 22 points and 11 rebounds in 31 minutes. He shot 9 for 13 from the field, and he made both of his free throws. Their elite starting center out of Kansas, Joel Embiid, finished with 19 points and 5 rebounds alongside 2 assists in 30 minutes as he shot 5 for 13 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and 8 for 9 from the foul line. With this win, the Philadelphia 76ers are 4-2 to start their season. With this loss, the Atlanta Hawks are now 3-3 to start theirs. Taking a look at what's going on in Detroit, the Detroit Pistons hosted the Orlando Magic. The Pistons were able to pick up their first win of the season as they beat the Orlando Magic 110-103. The Pistons would outscore the Magic by 5 in the first and by 8 in the third. That would be the real difference in this matchup. Looking at how the Magic fared, they were led in scoring by their starting small forward, Franz Wagner. He finished with 19 points in 28 minutes as he shot 8 for 15 from the field and 3 for 6 from 3. And then for the Pistons, their leading scorer was their starting small forward, Jeremy Grant. He finished with 22 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists in 35 minutes. He would go on to shoot 6 for 14 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, and 9 for 10 from the foul line. With this win, the Detroit Pistons are 1-4. With this loss, the Orlando Magic are now officially 1-6 on the season. Taking a look at what went down in New Orleans, the New Orleans Pelicans hosted the New York Knicks. Many anticipated the matchup between Zion and RJ, but Zion was unable to play, but RJ was still able to put together his best. The Knicks would beat the Pelicans 123-117. The big difference would end up being the first quarter, where the Knicks outscored the Pelicans by 6. Looking at how the Pelicans fared, their leading scorer was their starting center, Jonas Valanciunas. He finished with 27 points and 14 rebounds in 33 minutes. He shot 10 for 15 from the field and 6 for 7 from the foul line. And then looking at the Knicks, they were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard out of Duke, RJ Barrett. He finished with 35 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 12 for 18 from the field, 6 for 8 from 3, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. With this, before I get into it, actually, their elite starting point guard, Kemba Walker, finished with 19 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 steals in 32 minutes. Walker shot 6 for 11 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the New York Knicks are 5-1. And with this loss, the New Orleans Pelicans are now 1-6 to start their season, as we are just about to pass the 10% mark in this season. Jumping out to Indianapolis, the Indiana Pacers hosted their neighbors from up north, the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors would end up beating the Pacers 97-94. It was a 3-point game after the Raptors outscored the Pacers by 4 in the second half. Looking at the Pacers, they were led in scoring by their starting power forward, Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis finished with 22 points, 14 rebounds, 3 steals, and 5 fouls in 40 minutes. He would go on to shoot 8 for 18 from the field, and he would shoot 5 for 6 from the foul line on the night. Looking at the Raptors, they were led in scoring by their rookie starting small forward, Scotty Barnes. He would finish with 21 points and 12 rebounds in 35 minutes. He shot 9 for 17 from the field and 3 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Toronto Raptors are 4-3. With this loss, the Indiana Pacers are now 1-6. Taking a look at what's going on with Chicago, the Chicago Bulls hosted the Utah Jazz and were able to give the Jazz their first loss of the season. The Bulls beat Utah 107-99. The big difference was the third quarter where the Bulls outscored the Jazz by 10 points. In the Jazz lineup, their elite starting shooting guard Donovan Mitchell finished with 30 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 6 turnovers in 35 minutes. Mitchell shot 9 for 27 from the field, 2 for 11 from 3, and he made all 10 of his free throws. Looking at the Bulls, their leading scorer was their starting their starting small forward, DeMar DeRozan. He finished with 32 points and 6 rebounds in 35 minutes as he shot 13 for 22 from the field and a perfect 6 for 6 from the line. Their starting shooting guard, Zach LaVine, would finish with 26 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in 34 minutes. He shot 9 for 19 from the field, and he shot 7 for 8 from the foul line. With this win, the Chicago Bulls are 5-1 on the season, and with this loss, the Utah Jazz are now 4-1 to start their season at this point. Jumping out to see what's going on in Memphis, the Memphis Grizzlies hosted the Miami Heat. The Heat would end up beating the Grizzlies 129-103. The Heat outscored the Grizzlies by 16 in the first quarter and virtually ran away with that momentum. They even outscored the Grizzlies by 10 in the third. Looking at how the Grizzlies fared, they were led in scoring by 2 players, actually. Their starting shooting guard, De'Anthony Melton, finished with 20 points, 5 assists, and 2 steals in 27 minutes as he shot 6 for 12 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. Their elite starting point guard, John Morant, would finish with 20 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals in 33 minutes. He shot 7 for 18 from the field and 5 for 6 from the foul line. Looking at the Miami Heat, they were led in scoring by their elite starting small forward, Jimmy Butler, out of Marquette. He finished with 27 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 steals in 30 minutes. He shot 8 for 12 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and he shot 10 for 11 from the foul line. Their point guard off the bench, Tyler Hero, would finish with 22 points, and 6 rebounds alongside 5 assists in 32 minutes. He shot 8 for 19 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, Kyle Lowry, finished with 15 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, and 3 steals in 29 minutes. He shot 5 for 8 from the field, 4 for 5 from 3, and he made his only free throw of the day. With this win, the Miami Heat are 5-1 to start their season, and with this loss, the Memphis Grizzlies are now 3-3. Taking a look at what went down in Milwaukee, the reigning NBA champs, Milwaukee Bucks, hosted the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs would beat the Bucks to knock the Bucks down into 500 for the season. The Spurs ended up beating the Bucks 102-93 after they outscored Milwaukee by 11 points in the second half. Looking first at the Milwaukee Bucks, they were led in scoring by their elite power forward, reigning NBA Finals MVP, and NBA All-Star Game MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, out of Greece. He finished with 28 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, 7 turnovers, and 5 fouls in 34 minutes. He shot 11 for 18 from the field and 6 for 11 from the foul line. Looking at the Spurs, they were led in scoring by their starting point guard, DeJounte Murray. Murray finished with 23 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists, and 3 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 9 for 17 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the San Antonio Spurs are 2-4, and with this loss, the Milwaukee Bucks are 3-3 to start their season. Taking a look at what's going on in San Francisco, the Golden State Warriors hosted the Oklahoma City Thunder as they won their 5th game of the season. The Warriors beat the Thunder 103-82 as they outscored Oklahoma City by 13 in the third or to win the game by 21. Looking first at the Thunder, they were led in scoring by their starting point guard out of Kentucky, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He finished with 15 points and 5 rebounds in 29 minutes. He shot 6 for 15 from the field, and he made one of his 2 free throws on the night. Looking at the Golden State Warriors, they were led in scoring by their goated starting point guard out of Davidson, Stephen Curry. He finished with 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists in 27 minutes. He shot 7 for 16 from the field, and he shot 6 for 15 from 3. With this win, he's now 5-1, and with this loss, Oklahoma City is now 1-5 to start their season. That is the second game these two teams have already played this season. Looking out to Minneapolis, the Minnesota Timberwolves hosted the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets would end up beating the Timberwolves 93-91 as the Nuggets outscored the Timberwolves by 6 in the final quarter to win the game by 2. Looking at the Timberwolves, they were led in scoring by their shooting guard off the bench, Malik Beasley out of Florida State. He finished with 18 points in 27 minutes. He shot 6 for 14 from the field. He shot 6 for 10 from 3. Of course, doing the math, all of his made attempts came from the three-point line. Their elite starting center out of Kentucky, Karl-Anthony Towns, finished with 14 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 turnovers in 34 minutes. He shot 4 for 11 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and he shot a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, D'Angelo Russell, would finish with 14 points, 6 assists, and 2 steals in 31 minutes. He shot 6 for 15 from the field and 2 for 6 from 3. In the Nuggets starting lineup, their elite starting center, the reigning NBA MVP, Nikola Jokic, would finish with 26 points, 19 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 blocks, and 7 turnovers in 37 minutes. He shot 10 for 23 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and he shot 3 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Denver Nuggets are 4-2. With this loss, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 3-2. Taking a look at the final game that took place last night in Phoenix, the Suns hosted the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Suns were able to pick up their second win of the season as they were able to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers 101-92. The Suns were able to outscore Cleveland by double digits in the second and third quarter. They outscored the Cavaliers by 11 in the second and by 9 in the third. That's a combined 20-point deficit in the middle 2 quarters. Looking out at the Cleveland Cavaliers, they were led by their small forward in scoring by their small forward off the bench, Cedi Osman. Cedi Osman finished with 20 points and 2 steals in 30 minutes as he shot 7 for 15 from the field and 6 for 12 from 3. Looking at the Phoenix Suns, they were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard, the birthday boy Devin Booker. On his 25th birthday, Devin Booker would end up with 27 points, 4 rebounds, and 9 assists in 35 minutes. He shot 9 for 20 from the field, and he shot 9 for 10 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, Chris Paul, finished with 16 points, 2 rebounds, 10 assists, and 4 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 6 for 10 from the field, a perfect 2 for 2 from 3, and he would shoot 2 for 6 from the foul line on the night. With this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 2-3. And with this loss, the Cleveland Cavaliers are now 3-4, as of course the NBA season is just getting underway. Once today's matchups are done, I will come back tomorrow with another episode of The Elite, and I will go into what went down there and taking a look at what's going on outside of the country. Arsenal was able to beat Leicester City in their Premier League matchup as Smith Rowe would score the second goal to help Arsenal jump up the table a little bit. Liverpool was able to draw with Brighton and Hove Albion as their first 2 goals would come in the first half from Jordan Henderson and Sadio Mane. Brighton and Hove would come back later to equalize the game in the 65th minute, but that's still a point for both teams. Even though Liverpool drew, it was better than what happened to Manchester City. Manchester City would end up losing to Crystal Palace. Palace got the first goal in the first half, making it 1-0. Manchester City drew a red card at the end of the first half, and then Crystal Palace would score another goal up a man in the second half to win it 2-0. Chelsea remains at the top of the Premier League after they were able to beat Newcastle 3-0 at Newcastle. 2 of their goals coming from Reece James and the third coming off of a penalty kick from their Italian midfielder Jorginho. And then Manchester United was able to beat Tottenham in London 3-0 as Manchester's first goal will come from their goated Portuguese forward Cristiano Ronaldo. And the other 2 goals will come from Edison Cavani, an all-time great in the game, and Marcus Rashford, Manchester United's elite British forward. Taking a look at what's going on in La Liga today, from yesterday, Real Madrid was able to beat Elche 2-0 as both of their goals came from Vinicius Jr. Barcelona was able to draw with Alaves as their only goal came from Memphis Depay. Alaves would equalize it 3 minutes later. Taking a look at what's going on in the Bundesliga, the reigning Bundesliga champs, Bayern Munich was able to beat Union Berlin to retain the top of the table. Robert Lewandowski, Bayern's elite Polish striker, would finish with 2 goals as he had one of those goals was a penalty kick. Their third goal will come from Leroy Sané, their elite German winger. Kingsley Coman, their French winger, would score the 4th goal, and then their goated center attacking midfielder Thomas Müller would score the 79th minute goal. Borussia Dortmund would end up beating FC Cologne 2-0 as they remained at the second spot at the top of the table. And then in Italy, Juventus would fall just short to Hellas Verona 2-1 as their only goal came from the American Weston McKennie. And that's virtually what's going on today in soccer. But of course, as today is Halloween, this is the last day of October. Once all of today's matchups and exhibitions are done, I will come back tomorrow on Monday, November 1st for another episode of The Elite. I honestly look forward to that episode. I can't wait to get started as we have 2 more months remaining in this entire year. And tomorrow could, of course, be the very last day of baseball too, as we are transitioning to a different part of the sports year. I want to thank everyone once again for listening to this piece. I want to thank the NBA, NFL, MLB, college football, and soccer websites for giving me all that I needed. And of course, I want to thank everyone once again for listening to this piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with more tomorrow. Peace out.